Lieutenants are boring and expensive, however, they're extremely fun to kitbash. It's essentially an Intercessor body with a few extra bits on a larger base. Except if you make a mistake like me and put it on a smaller base, and now you have to figure out how exactly you're going to scrape it off there. But that's for another time. And I'm starting off by using this arm from the Primaris kit, cutting the hand off right after the brace, grabbing the extra axe from the Einhyr champion from the leagues of Votann, and cutting off it in the exact same spot, but just the opposite. Surprisingly, the hand is actually of a very similar dimension, so I'm not even worried about that at all. I measured it up just in case, and it was perfect enough that I just decided to glue it on without scraping anything extra. Personally, I don't think the axe is actually distinctive enough to say that it's a Votann weapon, but at the same time, you could also say that a Space Wolf just kept it as a trophy. Here I tried attaching this very ornate shoulder pad, however I quickly realized that it wasn't going on. For some reason it wasn't attaching all the way, but I still attempted to glue it on, just to realize that this little bit on the brace was actually catching the arm, so I had to take the shoulder pad off just to make sure it wasn't going to fall off later. Afterwards, I grabbed one of the simpler shoulder pads from the exact same Intercessor kit. This time it went on perfectly fine and I wasn't worried that it was going to come off. I always have a bit of a challenge with this specific arm and attaching a shoulder to it. For his left arm, I decided on a bolt gun with a drum magazine that he's holding in his one hand. It's also from the Primaris kit. I think the posture of holding a gun and taking out an axe just looks pretty awesome. I tried putting on this piece from the upgrade sprue for the Space Wolves, but it just really wasn't going off, so I decided to not wait for the glue to set and take it off. Just because he's helmetless doesn't mean he doesn't have a helmet, so I grabbed this helmet and decided to attach it to his hip, as if he's just taking it off to allow his wolf senses to take over. Then grabbing this wolf tail thing, I'm not sure what that is, squirrel tail, and attaching it onto the weapon. Since the connection between the two pieces was very thin, I was actually able to use the gravity to help me align the piece so that it looks much more natural. And surprisingly, I actually really like the way it turns out. It kind of looks more like a lucky trinket or something perhaps that he thinks will bring him luck. Then I grabbed one of the shoulder pads from the upgrade sprue. Moving on to the most dreaded part imaginable, the green stuff. Now, disclaimer, I don't actually know how to sculpt green stuff. I've sculpted a few different pelts in the past and it didn't exactly turn out awesome, but as with anything else, in order to learn it, you gotta try it, and try it some more. Now, just viewer discretion is advised. This will not be the best fur you've ever seen. But I started off by scraping off the sides and just getting a rough sketch for what I wanted this pelt to be. In the past, I've made my pelts a little bit too thick, so this time I decided to go much thinner. Then using my sculpting tool, I just proceeded to essentially just create these small little indentations all over the pelt. I also began to notice that I was pushing the fur inwards, so I decided to use the back of my brush as sort of like a holder for the fur. One thing I'm also not showing is the brush, the tool, and the green stuff does have a little bit of water on it. I know some people use other stuff, but personally I just found water works perfectly well, so I had no reason to use anything else. Then using the back of my X-Acto knife, I did attempt to create much sharper looking hair strand effects, hopefully giving it a bit more detail. However, I did go a little bit too far, so I grabbed the sculpting tool again and softened up some of the sharp edges. For the shoulder pad, I did a similar thing, just attaching a tiny bit of green stuff in the line that I wanted the pelt to go. Then using the same sculpting tool, I proceeded to do the exact same step of just stabbing it and creating these indentations. In some areas, dragging it across the shoulder pad as if the fur is naturally laying on it. I also really enjoyed the idea of having the pelt go inwards into behind the armor and sort of underneath the shoulder pad, as if it's actually more naturally attached than just magically appearing and disappearing out of thin air. For the shoulder pad, I did experiment a little bit with creating sort of the texture in different directions, as if the hairs are flowing a bit more naturally than the shoulder pad since it is swinging back and forth. There was surprisingly enough area underneath the shoulder pad that I was actually able to use the X-Acto knife and tuck in green stuff underneath it. And you know what? I think this is actually the best fur sculpted so far. I actually like it. And the Primaris scene was done. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you'd like to see the model painted, I did paint the one in my previous video and I thought doing the same thing would be a little bit too much. So if you'd like to watch it, I'll pin the video in the comment and also probably link it right here. I actually finished this model quite a while ago, but I lost it and I couldn't find it anywhere around me. Now, can you guess exactly where it was? I bet you didn't think of the spot where it was. Inside of my dirty paint water. I didn't change it out for about a week, so it was just sitting at the bottom and the water was murky enough that I couldn't even see it. It was weird when I actually emptied it out and a whole model came out of there. It was surprising, but I'm glad it wasn't painted.